Rob Ellis hanging out with you on this Wednesday. All right, Tone. So we know the team stands at 10-4. We know they've lost 3 straight. They're the number 5 seed right now. They have 3 games left. They play the Giants, who are 5-9 twice. First here on Christmas Day. Then they close out the season there on the final game of the season, and they play in between Arizona, who's 3-11. That's what they have left. Now, my guess is most of the time Arizona plays pretty competitive games. You would think that trend will continue, especially with Jonathan Gannon having a little incentive and having some intel on this team. I also don't think the Giants are going to be laying down for them in any way, shape, or form either. Now, certainly this week, I don't know. We'll see what the last game of the season looks like. Sometimes teams have their bags packed and, looking them to get out of there. I don't know, but I don't know that they're the layups that everybody else thinks they are. I think the games will be somewhat competitive. Do I like the Eagles? Yes. I like the Eagles to win the games, but I think they're going to be competitive.
They'll be competitive, all right. Because the Philadelphia Eagles are going to make it competitive. They're going to find a way to make sure these matchups are more complicated than they should be.
Right.
And that's just where they are right now. So the sooner we accept that, the easier it's going to be to watch these games. That's pretty much where I've been over the past couple of weeks, and I'm realizing that I've been a bit of a Debbie Downer over the past couple of weeks, and I don't want that to rub off on you guys. I know you guys come here to get some high quality sports talk, to get some positivity and some optimism. But I'm sorry, I don't have it for you. So what's going to happen is they have a matchup that they should win on Christmas. They should win. Operative word should. Will they? I don't know, you guys. This Philadelphia Eagles team is so unpredictable. I can't even place bets on them. So my brother always texts me and say, "Hey, man, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about this? Like, hey, is Jalen Hurts going to score? Is AJ Brown?" So listen, man, at this point in the season, just stop betting on them.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're going to do. So that's where I'm at with this Philadelphia Eagles team.
Fair enough.
Are these games that should be in the layup line? Should these be guaranteed buckets? Yes. Yeah. But will they find a way to slip on the banana peel? Entirely possible.
Yep. No doubt. All right. Let's walk through a little exercise looking back at last year statistically versus this year statistically. So let's start with this year, Tone. We'll begin on the offensive side of the ball. All right. They're scoring 25.6 points per game, which is good for 7th in the NFL. They're rushing the ball at 128.3 per game, which is good for 8th. Okay. Top 10 in both. This is where we start to see some of the dip. Passing game, they're 16th. 227.8 per game. And then red zone offense, again, pretty solid. Remember, they started off very poorly. They've improved that area. They're 9th in the league at 60.7. They're converting. They're also good offensively on third down. They're 4th in the league at 48.4. So you may look at those numbers and say, okay, I mean, other than the passing game, not bad. But some of that is they're resting on the laurels of what happened earlier in the season, and they're dragging that, that mean down of late. In a lot of these categories, scoring, they're averaging 9 points less per game over the last 3 games than what they're scoring for the season. They're not running the ball at the same clip that they were earlier in the year when Swift was going crazy in some of those early games. They're not passing it the same way. So they're dipping in some of these areas. But let me give you the comps to last year. Points per game last year, they were scoring 28 points per game, 28.1, which was good for 3rd. That's 3 more points per game. That's a lot. They rushed the ball at 147.6, almost 20 more per game on the ground, which was 5th. They passed the ball at 241.7, which was good for 9th. So that's about 14 more yards per game last year. So you're seeing them really and go down almost in every single category collectively. I thought maybe the run game would take a little bit of a dip because Miles Sanders had a good season for them last year. While he hasn't had a good one, he's been hurt a lot for Carolina. He's a good running back, but I thought they'd take a bit of a dip. I didn't think it'd be major. I don't know how they're passing the ball at almost 20 yards, or what is it, 14 yards per game less than they were last year. And it's not just the yards. We know what it looks like. They just don't move as efficiently as they moved last year.
That's the biggest thing. That's the operative word you said, efficiency. That's what's lacking. They lack efficiency. They lack efficiency in all those areas, and they lack continuity in all those areas. So it's no surprise why those numbers have dipped. And, you know, earlier in the season, you know, every time you try to criticize this team or hold them accountable, you had so many people saying, well, I mean, they're on par for what they're doing last year. The numbers are the same, and all this kind of stuff. You know, they're scoring the same amount of points. And I'm like, yo, we all talked about these issues earlier in the season. We all talked about them, but you know what happened? We allowed ourselves to get convinced by the score column or the record.
The win column.
The win column, exactly. Yeah. See, here's the thing. Like I thought about this over the break. Eagles fans, let's keep it real for a second. We spoke about all these issues all season. But
yeah, we did.
But we ignored them, didn't we? Well, we allowed people to kind of get in our head and say, well, I mean, they're, you know, this is a 6-0 team or a 7-0 team, however you want to slice it. We were all very critical of the offensive game planning or the identity or the production. You know, we were blinded by the AJ Brown extravagance, and you know, we were blinded by the late game second half comebacks, and you know, in all reality, we knew something was off with this offense. We knew something was off with this team in general, and we just continue to kind of tuck it in the back of the closet. But if you dig further in that closet, skeletons always come back to bite you.
You're right. I think what we did too, and to give ourselves a break a little bit, you know, we looked at it like, okay, there's a skill set to winning ugly, right? There's something to be said for that. But in fairness, we did point out, hey, a lot of this has to stop. This stuff continues. They're not going to beat the Niners and the Cowboys doing this or doing that, or not being able to convert third downs or turning or stop third downs, or not, you know, being better in the red zone or continuing to lose the plus minus battle. We said that over and over again. You're right. And we did. I think a little bit of it was wishful thinking, where it's like, hey, they won. You know, hey, they won. And I do wonder, do the coaches and the players look at it that way? Like, yeah, man, I mean, we're catching all this heat for this, but we won the game. We're going to be fine. Do we maybe not need to dig into this thing from a detail standpoint the way that we should? And, you know, maybe that's part of the commitment thing that Jalen Hurts was talking about. You know, maybe it was just, hey, we won, didn't we? All good. And we can say that. We can look at it that way. But if they do, then all of a sudden these things are going to come back to haunt you against real teams. And that's what it's happened. That's, you know, let's face it, Tone. The other thing is we wanted to kind of look away from Valdez-Scantling dropping that pass, you know, Buffalo and some of the things that happened in that game, you know, with Gabe Davis and with the ball that was on the money or whatever. And that stuff wasn't the Eagles doing. It was just luck. It was just luck that the other team, it didn't work out for the other team. If some of those things work out that way, the Eagles probably lose 2 more games. Now, you want to be careful going down that road too much, because that's the type of stuff happens both ways every single game. But nonetheless, there were some things that happened that didn't portend to be good for this team going forward. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to find out who they are, man. We're going to find out. See, this is the thing. Like, as much optimism as we want to dig deep and have, you say to yourself, but can they beat the Niners, though? Can they beat the Cowboys if they get them in the matchup? And that's who they're going to have to worry about when they get into the playoffs. That's who I was worried about. Now I'm worried about every single opponent they could potentially face.
Yep.
You know, it's. I was thinking about the saga of Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, right? And how there was just this rise. You know, they started out 2-5, then ended up with a 9-8 record on the season. Not bad. You make it to the playoffs. In the follow-up season, you just have this crazy rise. You take the league by storm. And this year, yeah, you have the 10-4 record. You started off 10-1. But you say to yourself, I don't know what went wrong.
Yeah.
Or you do know, but you don't want to admit when we're wrong. But still, I feel like the way everything went last year, you had to say to yourself, Nick Sirianni, okay, we got to find a way to take this to the next level. We got to find a way. And that never happened. So I look at the coaching staff and I look at this team, look at ownership, the GM, all of them. And I say, who's holding who accountable? I don't know. What do you think about that, Rob?
All right, well, here's my answer to that.
Who's holding who accountable?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and there's always the question of, is Jeffrey too close to Howie to really dig in on things, on that level, in terms of accountability? And I think it's a fair question to ask. But I will say this, as witnessed by the fact that they made the move with Desai and Patricia, this is not a team by any stretch that sits on their hands. Like, I can tell you, they're highly pissed off and highly disappointed in the way this is going right now. And, for a team that invests so much in the trenches on both sides and at the quarterback spot and the receiver spot, for them to be playing this poorly, believe me, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of searching for answers. They are not one that just relaxes or anything like that. I'm telling you, man, like they're pissed off. Tone, it would not surprise me if this looks bad again offensively, that even if they don't make an announcement, some grand announcement about it, wouldn't surprise me if Sirianni takes over the play calling. If this looks bad again.
And I don't even know how good that'll be.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it either. I'm just saying, like, something like that could happen.
Hey, man, what do you think those conversations are like right now in the Northgate complex? What do you think it sounds like right now in that building, walking around, players in the weight room and, in those meetings? How do you think those players, because, especially in the coaches' meetings, when the head coach is talking to the players, he's talking in front of like 50 plus guys.
Yep.
He's at the podium and they've got the little PowerPoint thing going. What do you think is going through their minds as they listen to Nick Sirianni talk?
Well, here's what I'm really wondering about too. I'm not trying to avoid your question, but I
know you're not. Go ahead.
I hope the players are holding themselves accountable. Like, I hope they're not afraid. I hope somebody's not afraid to get in on another guy. Like, in other words, call whoever. I mean, if you don't feel like, I'm just making him up, but Jordan Mailata's playing well enough. I hope there's enough accountability among themselves where they'll get into somebody and say, look, dude, you got to be better, man. We need more out of you. And if you want to apply that to Jalen, apply it to Jalen. I hope that's where they're at from a player standpoint, because if you don't do it now, it's not going to matter in 4 weeks when the playoffs start. You got a month to figure this thing out. Now, what are they thinking with Nick? I don't think they've checked out on Nick. I really don't. I think that they're at a point now with him where I think they're all searching for answers. So I don't think the players are looking at it like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, man. I think they're all like, damn, we didn't expect this. Like, what's happening to us? We're not accustomed to this. We haven't seen
They're
this.
Shell-shocked.
They're shell-shocked, which I think it has them all sort of on edge right now. And I believe that's kind of where their heads are. Their headspace is that of like, oh my God, I can't believe this. All right, let me jump to the defensive side.
Yeah.
This is where you're going to see it here. Eagles are 26th in points per game at 24.4 they're allowing. They're 7th against the run, but again, that's another number that started to dip. 94 rushing yards per game they're allowing. They're 28th against the pass, 255.4 in the air. Compare that to last year. They were 8th in scoring defense at 20.2 points per game. They're giving up more than 4 points per game more this year than they gave up last year. Last year, they were 17th against the run. They gave up 121.6. So this team is better against the run. But last year, Tone, they were number 1 against the pass. They gave up 179.8 in the air compared to 255.4. So they went from 1st to 28th in their passing defense. They went from 8th to 26th in their scoring defense. They currently reside last in third down efficiency in the league defensively at 47.6. They are 28th in red zone defense. They're giving up touchdowns in the red zone, Tone, at a 67.3 percentile. Okay. That's terrible. That's not bad. It's not mediocre. It's terrible. They're terrible in points. They're terrible against the pass. They're terrible in third down, and they're terrible in third down efficiency. And they're mediocre in sacks. Whereas last year they set a club record with 70. So they have really dipped in a massive way on that side of the ball. Big time.
Is it? And that's where it gets really interesting, right? The defensive side is the most complex situation, in my opinion, because one part of you says, damn, the coaching is mediocre at best. Then the other part of you says, no, they ain't got the personnel. And then when you make the coaching switch from the side of Patricia, it's like, okay, you saw what you saw in Seattle. The coaching change didn't change much, but also you say to yourself, well, how much can change in a week's time?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're constantly playing ping pong with who you want to blame for the issues. Is personnel the problem? Is coaching the problem? Is the GM hiding under his desk because he made some pretty nonsensical moves or undervalued certain positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the Bradbury signing, initially we were like, okay, that makes sense.
Yep. We were all on board.
Came off an all-pro year, second team all-pro year.
Yep.
Made sense.
Yep.
It can't get, but if it does get a little worse, it can't get that much worse.
Right.
No, he's playing. He's arguably giving the Philadelphia Eagles the worst year of his career.
Yep.
Arguably,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And it's so funny. The Giants had him for like 2 seasons.
He had his last year in New York was really bad. And that's why when they initially signed him, Tone, I was concerned that he was cooked. Now, he played great last year, and I was on board with them bringing him back. So I'm not going to front and BS you, okay?
Of course, same. But you know what it looks like now? It looks like the first year with your team, he gives you that great year. Then the year after that, he falls off, and it's consistent with what happened in New York. So,
and here's the other thing that happens with defensive backs, in my opinion. They hit a wall like running backs do sometimes. And it's noticeable. Sometimes with other positions, it's a little bit of attrition.
Yeah, like O-line, D-line.
Yeah.
You know, it's a slow burn with those positions.
With running back and corner, a lot of times, like you really, really drop. And he looks like he's markedly slower. Like I proposed this the other day, and people are like, "You're nuts." Like I know how young these guys are. I might sit them. I might roll with Ricks, and I know you're young. I get it. But I might roll with Ricks and Ringo, man.
Here's the thing. They're paying him so much money.
I know they're not going to. I'm just saying.
But I understand your premise, your theory, because he's playing so bad. Why you better off taking your chances with somebody who doesn't know they're bad? You know what I mean? Like you're better off taking a chance with someone who doesn't know what they don't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
Bradbury has been in the league too long. He has too much experience for him to be playing the way he's playing. So what that tells me, it's physical at this point. He physically cannot do the job.
He knows where he's supposed to be. Look, he's a very smart guy, and he's a well-intentioned guy. This is not, he's not working or he's dogging it. It's not that. He wasn't a guy who got the contract and said, screw it. I just don't think he can do it physically, man. I don't. Which is worse. Like you could get a guy's head screwed on straight, but if you can't run at that position, these guys are athletic freaks you're trying to handle every week.
He can't run.
No,
he can't. Like he's stiff.
Yes.
We see him every week. He looks like he physically does not have it.
Yes.
And when you see his face, he looks almost as shocked as we are. He just looks like he's hanging on by a thread every single game. But again, I can't kill Howie for bringing him back because you were under the guise that he would maintain some level of consistency, right?
Yeah. I genuinely, and I mean this, and I know people are going to kill me for this. I felt sorry for him after the game. He was asked repeatedly what happened, and he didn't make any. He's like, I have to play better. I got to cover better. Like, I just didn't get the job done. And he said it over and over and over again. And he wasn't ducking anything. He always stands up. I felt bad for the dude, like legitimately, but
Mhm.
he can't get it done. It's just not there. He's trying to go to a gear that isn't there, man.
Yeah, and then when you start to overcompensate, it shows in when you start to overcompensate, it affects your technique.
Yep.
It affects your fundamentals. You start to force things, and now you're being caught out of position more than anything.
Yeah.
You start to try things you normally wouldn't do because certain parts of your body are failing you. I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know the conversations he has with himself when he goes home at night.
Yeah, like, I don't care how long you've been around. I don't care how good you've been at something. When if you're really struggling with it, it affects you. It affects your confidence, it affects your mentality. It does. And I think he's out there trying his best, but waiting for something bad to happen, for a shoe to drop, man. And that's a bad place to be on that when you're on an island a lot like those guys are, and there isn't help sometimes. But this is also where Tone, this is also where it's incumbent upon coaching. Like Matt Patricia, what are you doing having him singled up with Smith-Njigba? What are you doing?
The youngest wide receiver they have with the freshest legs.
Yeah,
Are
what
you
are you
serious?
doing, man? You have to give that guy help or have somebody else. Like that to me, that's where everything falls into play, right? This is what we talk about. Is Bradbury doing the job? No. Did his coaches help him? No.
No.
So nobody's helping the other person. You got it. There's some things that you have to make up for on the coaching end, and there's some things that you got to be able to handle on the playing end, and neither one is happening right now.
Absolutely. It's a bad cocktail. Right now it's a bunch of Molotovs being thrown
Yeah,
around the Novacare complex.
exactly
And
right.
and the house is burning.
Yeah, it
The
is.
house is burning, man.
Yep,
You
and we're
you
sitting
look
there
at
drinking our tea. Everything's fine. Yeah, okay,
yeah,
sure it is.
no, the house is burning, quite literally.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, man, you start to be like, oh yeah, by the way, the linebackers.
Yeah,
And then,
right. Oh, yeah, we're
oh,
not even talking about that or the
we
missed
didn't even get
tackles.
there yet. We
Or
didn't
yeah,
even get
we're
there
not even
yet.
we haven't even gotten there. Well, look, for that matter, let's go there for a second here because now because Nakobe Dean, frankly wasn't good and was hurt a ton. You counted on him big time. You
Mhm.
counted on Morrow, who you brought in, but then Morrow wasn't good enough in camp that you cut him. So that's on you. Then you had to bring him back, and he's been okay. He's okay. And then
He has solid weeks and he has awful weeks.
yeah,
You
he's
know,
he's kind of what you thought he would be, I guess.
right? An inconsistent player.
Cunningham has been probably better than what you expected for a guy on the street. He's been fine, but he's hurt right now. So now you're left with you have to throw Shaq Leonard, who's been here a couple of weeks, into the mix. You continue to have tackling issues. There's one guy. Look, here's what I will give the young cats in the secondary credit for. Blankenship, Sidney Brown, those guys will do anything they can to try and hit you and lay a message. Okay. But there's going to be issues with them because they're young and they're learning and they're going to make mistakes. I would say Sydney's probably a little over aggressive, which is fine. I mean, that's something you can coach up.
Mhm.
And Blankenship makes, I think, more good plays than not, but there's times where he gets beat on certain situations that he's
They don't have enough speed back there. The
no.
only and that's why they had those young guys on the field against Seahawks like Ringo and
Ricks,
Ricks and
Joe.
Brown. They don't have enough speed. They don't have enough athleticism back there, and you see a lot of it most of the time. And
Yeah.
Blankenship is not a speedster by any stretch of the imagination at all.
Mhm.
But he knows how to play the position and
Yeah.
he knows where to be. And he's a sure tackler for the most part. And he takes good angles and understands gap control or whatever. But he's just not a fast dude.
Yeah.
So it can, if he gets caught out of position, it can really bite you.
Sure.
He has to be he has to be probably the most technically sound out of all those guys because
Yeah.
he doesn't have that makeup speed.
Right.
You know what I mean? City
Mhm.
Brown has makeup speed. So, that brings me to this point. Harry Roseman's going to have a lot of work to do this offseason to figure out what the next course of action is for this defense because this defense today
Mhm.
is not Super Bowl caliber. And I think you can win a Super Bowl with a top 12 defense, top 13. They're not even that. So,
Well, yeah, right. And that's again, I went into the season saying I think the defense will be okay. The defensive line is going to be excellent. Everything else is going to be, let's wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive line has let you down. They haven't been good enough getting sacks. They haven't been good enough affecting the quarterback, and they haven't been good enough lately against the run. And that is the area where I won't make any excuses. You're pretty healthy. I mean, who have you lost there? You have Reddick, you have Sweat,
You got
you have
everybody.
Brandon Graham, right? I mean, you have Fletcher Cox, you have
Yeah.
Jordan Davis, you have Jalen Carter, you have Milton Williams.
Did you have moments when you probably lost one of those guys, but not for long?
No.
You know, those guys were pretty much there all season.
Yeah.
I think each DT, actually, the healthiest DT on the season has been Jordan Davis. He hasn't missed a game, I don't think.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
I know Jalen Carter missed one. He missed the Jets
Fletcher
game.
missed one at least.
Fletcher didn't finish the Bills game.
Milton Williams missed a game.
Milton Williams missed a game. Marlon Tuipulotu missed a game. I think Jordan Davis has been the healthiest one. He dealt with the hamstring a little bit, but he still played.
Yep.
So, you know, the DTs, they've taken a step back. Josh Sweat's taking a step back. Hassan Reddick is still doing Hassan Reddick things, but only so much one guy can do, and they're not getting enough push.
So it's like the two things that had to happen: your offense had to be borderline great, your defensive line had to be really good, and the offense is taking a step back, and your defensive line is taking a step back, and then a lot of the other stuff gets exposed. You know, when that's the case, and frankly, they haven't been coached up as well as they could have or should have.
And that's the sad part.
Yeah.
The two things you were hinging your season on are not living up to expectation.
Yeah.
It exposes your other flaws.
Well, that's what it is. When you add all that up, it's like, all right, well, here you are. So how correctable? Let's ask that question as we sit here right now. How correctable are some of these things? I don't know how correctable it is on the back seven. I think it's just sort of hope the younger guys don't make some of the mistakes they're making. I think the defensive line can play better as a whole. And this is, again, broken record. This is where the offense has to be better and start to try to figure out what some of the issues are right now against teams that maybe aren't as great, where you might be able to get away with some things, but it's got to be a slow build for the next three for the playoffs. You've got to start fixing it this week. It can't be another game where you're under 20. You even against these teams, you'll struggle.
Yeah.
You will.
Yeah. How correctable is it? At this point in the season, the best we can hope for is improved rhythm on offense, improved execution on both sides of the ball, maybe some improved confidence because of this next 3-game stretch. But as far as talent, as far as the coaching, the fatigue or whatever it may be, they are who they are. And we're going to have to hope and pray certain things happen for them to get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're nowhere near in control of their own destiny. And that's never a place where you want to be. You never want to be in a position in life where you're depending on someone else to make something happen for you rather than falling on your own sword.
Exactly.
And the Philadelphia Eagles right now, they have no control over what's been happening to them.
Yeah. All right, let's get a timeout in, and we'll look at. I think we look at both sides of the ledger here from this season thus far: positives, negatives, stock up, stock down. How you would assess each player individually. We'll dive into that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Tone to Shields. I'm Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I want to tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group because, excuse me, knowing who to trust with your finances can be a scary proposition. And I was right there in the front of the line with you for a very long time. But fortunately, I found the right person that I trust with my finances, and that's Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business and you need help with your employee benefits, that's another resource that Jim can help you with. I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollover with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call right now, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him as well, Murray, Murray, murray.gym@principal.com. That's murray.gym@principal.com.